Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at Texas Chain Saw 3D, released in 2013. Chain Saw 3D is another splinter in the increasingly confusing Texas Chain Saw timeline. This movie is a direct sequel to the original 1974 film, meaning it ignores parts 2 through 4, as well as both films in the remake timeline. If you're having a hard time wrapping your head around it, just check out this awesome timeline picture made by Shannon EJ on Twitter. Great work, Shannon. With this picture, this shit almost makes sense. The opening segment of this movie, in fact, takes place immediately after the first film's conclusion, and they actually do an impressive job recreating the setting and situation. They rebuilt the original Sawyer house from scratch based on blueprints and the film itself. And since Marilyn Burns and Gunnar Hansen returned to play minor roles in this movie, the new old house served as a perfect backdrop for their adorable reunion. Also awesome is that this movie has Bill Moseley playing Drayton Sawyer, since original actor Jim Seedow passed away in 2003. But man, do things get dumb when the movie jumps to the present 40 years later. Starting with the fact that Alexandra Daddario plays a character who we see as a baby in 1974. You don't need a 5 on the AP Calc test to realize that the then 27-year-old Alexandra Daddario isn't the best fit for a character who logically should be 40 years old. Although it's not like the screenwriters even bothered to acknowledge that mathematical fact. The script treats her character like she's a 20-something. It makes no fucking sense. Texas Chain Saw 3D uses a screenplay originally written by husband and wife team Adam Marcus and Deborah Sullivan. And if his name sounds familiar, it's because he co-wrote and directed Jason Goes to Hell back when he was 23. He was a lot older as he wrote this movie, obviously. Their script gives us the most narratively complicated film in the franchise yet. While all the Texas Chain Saw movies up to this point have mostly been about kills and cannibalism, this movie attempts to tell a Hatfield and McCoy type story, pitting the Sawyer family against a new adversarial clan, the Hartmans. It's replete with references to the original, and controversially tries to humanize Leatherface a whole bunch. This is probably the most sympathetic portrayal of the character yet. But a sympathetic portrayal doesn't mean we won't have any kills, so let's find out how many there are and get to them. The movie begins with opening credits that use stylized footage from the original to reorient the audience. Also, nice trick using Bill Moseley to recreate that memorable shot of Jim Seedow jumping around. It almost had me for a second. While Moseley has always been able to do a great Jim Seedow impression,
"You gotta run for that money now, chase that dollar, gotta go fast to catch it,"
he described himself playing Drayton as Moe playing Curly in a Three Stooges remake. I think he's selling himself short. He can still do an excellent Seedow.
"Look what your brother did to the door!"
After reminding us of how Sally Hardesty got away, we finally jump into new footage, which shows a cop named Sheriff Hooper speeding to the Sawyer house. But he's unable to get there before a couple of other random Sawyers show up, so there's a prickly posse of people eaters perched and prepped to resist him by time he yells at Drayton to come out with his son Jed. Oh, and don't get confused. I'm not talking about Jedediah Hewitt, that dirty little boy from the remake. Nope, Jed is Leatherface's name now. What is that, like his 5th in the franchise? Drayton wants to protect his family, which includes Grandpa, played once again by John Dugan, the guy who portrayed him in the original. Of course, back then he was still a teenager, and this time through he was, well, a bit closer to the character's actual age. Unfortunately for Drayton and his familial loyalty, this dude Boss Sawyer thinks that he should compromise with the cops.
Give him the boy. He's simple anyway.
Wow, pretty harsh words to say about Leatherface, especially coming from the original Leatherface himself. That's right, Boss Sawyer is played by Gunnar Hansen, who wore that human skin mask 40 years prior to this. He's even sitting in the same window spot in which Leatherface had that quiet, nervous breakdown. Sadly, this was Gunnar Hansen's final film role before he passed away in 2015. Rest in peace, you big Icelandic teddy bear. Drayton goes to get Leatherface Jed and hand him over to the cops as a patsy. But before they can cooperate, a whole bunch of good old boys pull up looking for their own kind of justice. The gang is led by Bert Hartman, who directs this dude Ollie to throw a Molotov cocktail into the Sawyer home. A fiery firefight breaks out between the two groups, during which nearly every Sawyer inside the house is killed, including one Sawyer woman, 4 random Sawyer men, Boss Sawyer, Drayton Sawyer, and even Grandpa Sawyer with his hammer. Aw, he had just learned how to firmly grasp it too. Another Sawyer woman, Loretta, is shot but manages to escape with her baby while the mob outside celebrates their victory victory. Later on, while picking through the wreckage, posse member Gavin Miller finds an injured Loretta and her baby, Edith Rose Sawyer. Although he's willing to save the baby, he's got no love for Loretta, so he kills her with a kick to the face. We get a good long look at her corpse, as well as an important Sawyer family necklace she's wearing. Never would have pegged this family as the jewelry type. Gavin gives the baby to his wife Arlene, and they join the other arsonists for some pictures that are disturbingly reminiscent of lynch mob photos. Wait, someone's taking pictures in a Texas Chainsaw film? You know what that means. Oh yeah, isn't that thing the best? 40 years later, Edith Rose Sawyer has grown to be a 20-something-year-old woman living under the name Heather Miller. Heather doesn't know about her past, even if it's evidently guided her occupational choices. And her art style. That bone shadow box would be right at home in the Sawyer family chicken room. Bob Burns would be proud. While she's making out with her boyfriend Ryan, who's played by rapper Trey Songz and who really likes that birthmark on her boob, a letter arrives from Dallas with some sad news.
My grandmother died 3 weeks ago.
But as far as Heather knows, all of her grandparents have already died. What gives? She confronts her parents Gavin and Arlene, those baby snatchers from the intro, and asks them what's going on. They admit to her that she's not their biological daughter, but that might be a good thing for you, Heather. These two don't exactly seem like the nicest folks.
You came from a shit heap. If I had half a mind, I'd have left you there.
The letter says that Heather's inheriting that shit heap, so she sets off for Texas with Ryan and their two friends Kenny and Nikki. Damn, Ben Linus's daughter grew up. They stop at a gas/shirt wettening station, and on their way out, suddenly hit a dude. Y'all should have had one of those Russian dash cams. I'm pretty sure that dude jumped straight in front of your vehicle. The dude they quote-unquote hit is a handsome hitchhiker named Daryl, who asks them for a ride in exchange for gas money and not suing their asses. You got yourself a deal, shady partner. The next morning, they get to Newt, Texas, home of the world-famous dead armadillo, and find Heather's late grandmother's property. Oh, and it's the fancy gate-having kind of place, too. Heather's grandma was named Verna Carson, and Verna's lawyer, Mr. Farnsworth, arrives to meet the kids at the gate. He's played by Richard Reel, who you may know from Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I know him from the 10,000 times I've watched Office Space. Farnsworth gives Heather the dungeon keys to Verna's estate, as well as a letter.
It's from Verna. Make sure you read it.
Dude, guess what she doesn't do?
I will.
She won't. You probably should have stressed it to her a little more, Farnsworth.
Don't forget to read Verna's letter.
Oh shit, well then that's on her. You good, Farnsy. Heather's new house is the coolest fucking house yet in this series. Although I guess that's a low bar to clear, since this one's not full of human remains or Matthew McConaughey's spittle. Still, there's no denying that this place is capital D dope. Good luck with them property taxes though, Heather. While her friends act like a movie's idea of cool kids, Heather goes out back and finds a family cemetery where famous Sawyers such as Drayton the Cook are buried. The Carsons are also buried there. It's explained a little bit more in Leatherface, but just so you're not confused, Heather's grandma Verna was born a Sawyer but married a dude named Ben Carson. Verna's daughter Loretta was the woman with the baby who was killed 40 years ago. That baby, of course, is 27-year-old Alexandra Daddario. Because this movie's characters are the least rational people you could ever write, they decide to head out for snacks while leaving Daryl, the total stranger, behind, all on his own at their brand new house filled with fancy shit. Obviously, he immediately begins robbing the place for all it's worth. But during his larceny, he uncovers a hidden section of the house with a door that has the lock for that giant dungeon key. But Daryl should have stuck to silverware thievery, because this room is Leatherface's, and he kills Daryl by knocking him down and bashing his head in with a hammer. Yeah, like all the way in. It's pretty gross. The fake head here was created by special effects artist Mike McCarty, who called it a smash-o head and filled it with a ton of fake blood to come out as it was hit with a hammer. I love that he shares my opinion of digital gore effects.
CGI can go fuck itself.
Hey, he said it, not me. In town, the kids go on their shopping trip, and we find out that Nikki and Ryan have slept together before. Uh-oh. She's into doing it again. He says he's not, but I'll let you take bets on how long that'll last. Heather, meanwhile, gets hit on by a young deputy named Carl, who's played by Clint Eastwood's youngest son, and also meets Bert Hartman, that dude who led the Sawyer killing posse, who's now the town's mayor. Why is that not surprising? Bert finds out that Heather's inherited the old Carson home, even though she's not a Carson.
You're not a Sawyer.
Yep.
Uh-oh, Heather, don't go getting firebombed by this guy. The kids get back to the house and discover Daryl's damage, but it's not bad enough to keep them from solo cup toasting the Sawyers and having a meat cookout that night. Aw, that would sure make Drayton proud. While Heather's taking stock of her new family photos, she realizes that her birthmark matches a necklace worn by all the Sawyer women in these pictures. That's super cool, Heather, but maybe you should read that letter your grandma left you now. If she had, she could have warned Kenny not to go into the secret part of the Carson home, but she didn't, so he does. Although lucky for him, nothing really seems to be down. Just kidding, it's fucking Leatherface! Kenny tries to escape, but gets stopped by a meat hook stab that gets blood all over the camera lens. What is this, the Revenant? Meanwhile, Nikki lures Ryan out to the barn, where she surprises him with a tequila picnic and a striptease. Who had 10 minutes on an affair? 10 minutes, anyone? With everyone else preoccupied, nobody's around when Heather finds the corpse of her late grandma Verna sitting in a chair. Well, no one but Leatherface, that is, but he's also pretty busy right now, pruning the fingers off a hand. No one interrupts my kitchen time. Meal prep is very important. After some random flashes using ye old flashbulb sound effect, Heather wakes up to Leatherface chainsawing a body to pieces. He then puts Kenny on a meat hook before killing the poor boy with his chainsaw, which he uses to literally cut Kenny in half with. Holy shit! It's a hell of a kill when you see it all. Heather revs up her own engine and starts her very first chainsaw chase scene, but truth be told, this girl be tripping all over the goddamn place. Sally Hardesty would be ashamed, Heather. She tries to hide from Leatherface inside a casket in an open grave, but Leatherface isn't fooled and goes to cut her out of there. He might have succeeded if it wasn't for Nikki and Ryan, who come outside to see what's making all that noise. Hey, dude, I think you left both barn doors open there. Jedediah Sawyer turns his attention to the two hot half-naked people instead, and despite a squeaky utterance of an awful one-liner,
Welcome to Texas, motherfucker!
They do attempt to shoot him away. It works long enough for Heather to drive in with the van, and together, the three of them get away from Heather's cousin Jed and his people-mulching chainsaw. Ryan stupidly tries to drive straight through the wrought iron gate, but that only succeeds in stalling out their car. Seriously, we've seen a lot of stupid victims in this series, but this movie has gotta have the stupidest. Because of that idiot maneuver, Leatherface is able to catch up to the van and literally saw a tire off, which proves to be pretty damn effective at stopping the kids during their getaway. Oh, and killing Ryan, cause that dude's dead from the crash after his head went straight through the window. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Leatherface comes by to say hello with his chainsaw, but after flipping over the vehicle and giving Nikki a little tummy tuck, he gets distracted by Heather, who's managed to escape the van. He follows Heather back onto the racetrack for the Chainsaw Grand Prix. The finish line for this lap is a fucking carnival. What? Yo, are we seriously watching Leatherface run around a crowded public area? That's straight crazy. And shit, we even doing Saw references now too?
Hey, fuck
I do actually, and the name of the game is make another good Texas Chainsaw movie. This ridiculous damn scene even includes a Ferris wheel sequence, and it ends with a shitty 3D punctuation mark. Leatherface throwing his chainsaw at Deputy Carl / the audience. Okay, bye. Carl takes Heather to the police station where Sheriff Hooper is still in charge 40 years later. She tells him everything he could possibly want to know. That she's a Sawyer, that Leatherface came from the old Carson house, what Leatherface's preferred attire is.
He was wearing a face.
A mask?
A human face.
You know, the usual info. Mayor Buttface shows up, and after yelling at Sheriff Hooper about the Carnival mishap, he starts issuing orders to Hooper's police force through the radio, like this guy Marvin, who's just arrived at the Carson house. Sheriff Hooper wants the officer to stand down, but Marvin listens to the mayor instead, and the mayor wants him to go, go, go! GLHF, move out, team! Oh, and shit, Marvin's Twitch game is strong too. Look at the quality on that mobile stream. No dropped frames or nothing. Marvin follows a blood trail into the hidden part of the Carson home and down into Leatherface's apartment. While Marvin continues his stream, begging Hooper and the mayor for bits, Heather is left completely unattended to. So she passes the time with some light reading about the Sawyer family, their victims in 1973, and the fate that eventually befell them. Death at the hands of a posse led by Bert Hartman. Dun dun dun! Wow, that guy probably looks pretty bad when you're staring at a crime scene photo of your dead mom, huh? At the Carson house, Marvin finds the very gory slaughter room that boasts a bunch of dismembered bodies and one big floor freezer. With Mayor Bert's encouragement, he approaches it cautiously. Oh shit, should have been more cautious, dude. Nikki was just pretending to be Pam from the original, man. She didn't deserve a bullet to the brain like that. Although I do love that Hooper and Bert's reaction looks like Chris Tucker and Ice Cube in Friday. Marvin's prepared to walk away from that little oopsie like it never even happened, but Leatherface stops him by attacking him with a hatchet, and he kills Marvin on the butler's pantry floor by hacking at him repeatedly. When Mayor Bird and Sheriff Hooper go to talk to Heather, they find that she's left the station, leaving only an accusatory red marker note in her wake. Heather calls up Farnsworth and asks him for help, so he meets with her at a local bar where she complains about getting blindsided by Leatherface.
Did you read Verna's letter?
Yo, Farnsy, get this.
No.
I asked you to, right?
Dude, you definitely did. Since Heather didn't do her assigned reading, Farnsworth has to give her all the Cliff's Notes. Leatherface's real name is Jedediah Sawyer, he's actually Heather's cousin, and Verna watched over him since he was family, despite the fact that he was a handful.
Huge, but mentally stunted, with the emotions of an 8-year-old.
When Bert shows up at the bar, Farnsworth tells Heather to run away and that he'll slow Bert down. He's, not very good at that though. Still, Heather is able to run away from the bar and find Deputy Carl, who she flags down for help. But guess what, y'all? Deputy Carl's a bad guy. Oh no! He's actually Mayor Bert's son, and his dad tells him to take Heather out to the slaughterhouse so they can take care of her once and for all. I do like that this movie alters the franchise's trope of everyone you meet is a bad person, from everyone being Sawyers to everyone being corrupt town officials. Well, everyone except Farnsworth, that guy cool, and Sheriff Hooper, who's informed by Farnsworth of all the fuckery going on. In a convenient bit of plot contrivance, Leatherface overhears the Hartmans' plans over the police radio, so he gears up with another chainsaw and heads on out to join the party uninvited. Carl and Heather get to the slaughterhouse first, and after hanging her up by her wrists, he needlessly tears open her shirt so we can all marvel at the strength of double-sided tape. Seriously, why even bother doing that if you're just gonna have her wear a physics-defying jacket? I still might end up censoring some of these shots though, just in case YouTube decides that her side boob is too much. Fuck getting in trouble over this movie. Carl heads outside to meet his mayor dad and that dude Ollie, the one who threw the Molotov cocktail in the opening scene. While they're out front, Leatherface shows up to whisper meat nothings into Heather's ear. He's all ready to 3D kill her until he notices her Sawyer family birthmark/burn scar. Told you that shit was important. After he tells Heather that he'll always be right here, Leatherface sets her free. But before he can return to his home planet, Bert and Ollie show up and start beating him down. Heather's able to get away at first, but she just can't bring herself to abandon her cousin in his time of need. And with a chain around his neck, slowly pulling him into a giant grinder, yeah, I'd say this definitely qualifies as a time of need. Heather returns to the slaughterhouse and makes quick work of Ollie, who she kills by stabbing in the chest with a pitchfork. Man, it's almost shocking to see such a subdued kill in this movie. Then she heads over to where Bert and Jed are and tosses Leatherface's chainsaw with another horrendous line.
Do your thing, cuz.
Oh, holy shit, that was bad. Leatherface uses that tool to shorten Bert by a foot, scratch that by 2 feet. And although Sheriff Hooper shows up with a gun pointed at Jed, he decides to stand down and allow Leatherface to, well, do his thing, cuz. His thing is apparently cutting off Bert's hands, giving us some awful digital effects as the villainous mayor slides down into the giant meat grinder. Wow, this looks like a crappy video game. Who approved this? Hooper leaves the slaughterhouse, pretending like he didn't see any of this, and the cousins enjoy a silent victory together before walking back home to the Carson mansion. There, Heather tends to her cousin, who's cool with a little face washing, as long as she doesn't touch the mask. Never touch the mask, Heather. With nothing else left to do, Heather finally fucking reads the note Verna left for her. And the narrated flashback of her grandma writing the letter gives us a cameo by Marilyn Burns, who played Sally Hardesty in the original film. Texas Chain Saw 3D isn't a great movie, but at least this is a better cameo than that hospital scene in Next Generation. Oh, and by the way, that scene also had a cameo by John Dugan as the police officer. I forgot to mention that in the Next Generation kill count. Sorry. Anyway, the letter explains everything that Heather's already learned since then, so this is kinda like studying for the test after you take it, isn't it? The movie ends with Heather deciding to stay and Leatherface reenacting an old classic. Oh, actually, hold up. There is a post-credits scene of Heather's adopted parents Gavin and Arlene showing up to get their hands on some of that inheritance. We never actually see Leatherface kill them, but fuck it, let's throw them on the list. The rules are out the window for this franchise. How many kills did we get to see Leatherface acquire in 3D? Let's find out and get to the numbers. In 3D? Oh no! Chainsaw coming at you! By my count, 18 people died in Texas Chain Saw 3D, another new record for the series. The victims consisted of 14 men and 4 women, and literally half of the victims, 9 people, were Sawyers. Damn. With a runtime of 92 minutes, we had a kill on average every 5.11 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Kenny. Dude gets cut in half with a chainsaw, and although I can't show it all in the public version of this video, I guarantee it's as gruesome as anything you're imagining. Dull machete for lamest kill will go to the Sawyers who got shot up in the beginning, because gun kills are boring. Although I will say I almost gave this award to Bert based solely on those awful effects. Ew. And that's it. Texas Chain Saw 3D came out in 2013, establishing a new continuity for the series that would be followed in the prequel Leatherface. I'll look at that next week, but until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching this week's Kill Count. I want to thank some patrons like Dana Bergeson, Power Player Austin Brown, Jennifer Ayers, Anthony Michelli, and Kenny Witherspoon. Just a reminder that Chelsea and I will be doing the first ever live show of the Dead Meat Podcast at RTX in Austin, Texas. The show is on Sunday, July 7th, so get your tickets for RTX in the video description. Be good people.